Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to the It's Attainable Real Estate Investing Show. It is episode number 17. I've talked on this show about investing and real estate investing, but where do you get the money from to invest? Join me as we talk about that and more on today's show.
Welcome to the It's Attainable Real Estate Investing Show, where you will learn about investing, the power of real estate investing, and how to invest in it. Whether you have the time or even if you don't, you're going to see it's attainable either way. And now your host, who always wants to share knowledge with you, Christopher Balcom.
So, where does the money come from to invest or to invest in real estate? Well, there's many places, but number one is good old cold, hard cash. Remember with real estate, because of the power of leverage, we talked about the power of debt and leverage in episode number 4 of this show. Remember that because of the power of leverage, when it comes to real estate, you don't have to have the entire cost of the real estate in hand to acquire the property. Typically, for just the acquisition of the real estate asset, it's going to require 20 to 25%, at least for the initial acquisition cost of the real estate asset. And the bank picks up the rest. You pay 20 to 25%, and the bank picks up 75 to 80%, typically. So for a $100,000 real estate asset, we're talking $20,000 to $25,000 that you would need to acquire that real estate asset. And for a $500,000 property or asset, we're talking $125,000 you would need to acquire that real estate asset. And for a $1 million real estate asset, you would need $250,000 to acquire that real estate property or asset. And so on, whether the real estate is more expensive or less expensive. Again, you're looking at 20 to 25% to at least acquire that real estate asset or investment. What's more is that depending on the type of real estate asset, you might even be able to pool your dollars together for the 20 to 25% with someone else. Let's go to the far end of the spectrum, for example. Let's say a skyscraper. It's typical that a skyscraper was not constructed or developed or acquired by a single person. In fact, it's frequent that a pool of 2 or more people, probably a group of people, put their dollars together to acquire or construct or develop such a large real estate asset like that. It doesn't have to be a large skyscraper. It can happen with smaller real estate assets as well. So where does the money come from to invest in real estate? The first option is cash. Your own cash or the collective cash of others and yourself. The second option is savings. And savings really comes from discipline. When I think about savings, I think about extra spare money that might be left over after you pay all of your household expenses and maybe purchase some of your wants. So extra spare money. Over time, that extra spare money, whether small or large, can build up to the point to where you have the 20 or 25% required to acquire a real estate asset. Some might get bonuses depending on your occupation or the organization you work with. So instead of taking those bonuses and using it to buy stuff, take that bonus or collective bonuses over the years or months or quarters and use that to invest in a real estate asset. This is episode number 17, so if you listen to the past shows, it probably goes without me saying that when you invest in an asset, it's something that pays you back. So you invest your dollars in something, you invest your spare money or your bonuses or your savings or your cash in something, and in return, it pays you back. We started way back in episode 1 or 2 talking about investments and what the definition of an investment is. Ideally, the intent or the target of an investment is to put your dollars in and for you to come back and have it be more than what it was when you left it. So the investment pays you. It pays you back the dollars you put into it and more. All right, so extra spare money, bonuses. What about tax refunds? I hear a lot of people excited about their tax refunds, and for good reason. You're getting maybe a lump sum of money that you may not have otherwise had or knew that was coming. So what about taking that tax refund or tax refunds and using that to invest in a real estate asset? One note about tax refunds. The reason that you actually get a tax refund is because of overpayment throughout the year. So the IRS, at least here in the U.S., is actually just giving you your money back that you overpaid to them throughout the year from your paycheck. It doesn't have to be that way. You have a choice of getting your dollars, or I should say keeping your dollars, your hard-earned dollars, throughout the year versus overpaying to the IRS and having them to refund it back to you later. Everyone has their preference, but you're giving a interest-free loan of your dollars to the government. If you did want to get your dollars, or I should say again, keep your dollars, your hard-earned dollars that you receive from your employer throughout the year versus putting it on hold or in storage or giving it to the IRS for free, the IRS publishes a W-4 calculator yearly. It allows you to input your expected income, your expected deductions, and it'll tell you exactly how to fill out your W-4 for your employer. When the calculator is used properly and the W-4 input correctly, the taxes deducted from your employer will be just enough to cover your tax liability due to the IRS or due to the government. So that means you'll get little or no tax refund, but what you would have gotten later next year, you'll get to enjoy and use and hopefully save or invest in the current year. So we talk about discipline. I think of discipline when I think of savings because it does take discipline to not spend every dollar you receive. So with discipline comes less spending. There's a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, What the Rich Teach Their Kids About Money That the Poor and Middle Class Do Not. Now don't get all caught up in the title about versus rich and poor. You have to read the book, and there's a really good meaning in this book. It's a top 5 book for me for sure. You know what? This book is so good and so important. The first 10 people who contact me, I'll buy this book and ship it to you. Or if you want the audiobook, I'll get that and e-deliver it to you too. It's a good book. So how can you contact me? If you go to neelyrealty.com/engage, that's NILEE, realty.com/engage, click the learn or listen and watch button, and then you should see an option to ask a question. Click that and let me know you want the book. Let me know you want to learn about taking control of your finances and investing. And if you have a comment about the show or have a question about the show, definitely leave that too. So there's one part in this book where the author, Robert Kiyosaki, continues to call things you buy doodads. I don't hear that term that much, the term doodad, so it sticks in my memory a lot. I joke with my wife about it from time to time when we start looking at shiny objects and think about things we need to buy too often. I joke with her about the book, saying, remember all those doodads that Robert Kiyosaki talks about in the book. In all seriousness, though, stop spending on things you don't need. Sacrifice now for long-term rewards later. Skip the Amazon Prime Day. So besides less spending, what about cutting expenses? So if we do less spending, we should have more dollars available to invest. But what happens when we cut expenses? Firstly, what kind of expenses? You know your expenses way more than I do, but I think about all the subscriptions that the world is trying to get us to sign up for, whether it's music or videos or this or that. Everything seems to come as a subscription nowadays. So cutting the subscriptions that you don't need. Loans. How can I cut the loan expense? Whatever the loan is, it's usually tied to some type of interest rate. So maybe you can refinance that loan, whether it's a personal loan or some type of loan that you can refinance for a better rate, or a loan that will take the place of the existing loan for a better rate. One of the largest loans you may have if you're purchasing the home that you live in is the mortgage. Now is a great time. Third quarter here, 2020, now is a great time. In fact, mostly all year here in 2020 has been a great time to refinance your mortgage. Interest rates have been at record lows, so if you're able to refinance your mortgage for a lower interest rate, not only will you save an interest in the long term because you'll probably pay off the mortgage sooner, but the payment for the mortgage may also be less. So if you choose to pay the lower mortgage amount each month, that frees up dollars in cash that you can use to invest. Credit cards. These are like a loan too, a revolving loan. You can refinance this debt as well, maybe refinance it into a consolidation loan. It's typical, at least here in the U.S., for a credit card interest rate to be anywhere from 7 to 25%. So if you can move that to a consolidation loan and cut a 25%, or we'll pick somewhere in the middle, let's say like a 14% credit card interest rate, and you can get a consolidation loan or a personal consolidation loan in the range of 7, 8, 9%. Again, just like the mortgage, you cut down the time that it's going to take to pay off that balance, so you save on interest. It puts more money in your pocket long term. Whether you choose a consolidation loan or just keep paying the credit card as it is, pay it off aggressively, get rid of it, and stop using them. I said it a few moments ago, you know your expenses better than I do, so think about what else you are spending on. What can be cut? What's not really needed right now in life? Sacrifice now for long-term rewards later. So what happens when you cut these expenses? Besides having more cash available or on hand over time to invest in assets that will pay you back, as you get your expenses under control, you can start buying or investing in assets that pay those expenses, like real estate. If you get enough assets to pay your expenses, we call that financial freedom. But if you don't get your expenses in order first, you'll never be able to have enough assets to cover those expenses. You'll keep growing assets and you'll keep growing expenses. This happens with normal employment too. If you allow your expenses to continue to rise, each raise that you get at work doesn't seem like a raise. In fact, you find yourself needing a higher and higher wage or a higher and higher salary, and it's because your expenses keep rising. It's not totally about how much you make. It's about how much you keep. So what about that financial freedom term? Financial freedom or financial independence, one definition defines this as the status of having enough income to pay one's living expenses for the rest of one's life without having to be employed or dependent on others. Income received without having to work a job or trade your time for money is commonly referred to as passive income. The income from real estate investing is exactly that. You don't trade your time or an equivalent amount of time for the income that you receive from the real estate asset. So when we think about where the money comes from to invest or to invest in real estate, up until this point we've talked about cash, and we've talked about savings and the discipline behind savings, such as cutting expenses, less spending, tax refunds, bonuses, and just extra spare money you may have. So let's get a little bit more creative. What other sources are there for investing or investing in real estate? Home equity line of credit, or HELOC. A HELOC, or home equity line of credit, is a secure loan. It's secure to your home. And because of that, the bank express better terms because the loan is secured. And secured loan means to the bank that there's less risk. It actually does mean that when the loan is secured to your home, if you don't pay that loan or you don't pay that home equity line of credit as agreed upon with the bank, then your home is at risk of being foreclosed on. So we don't want that, but with anything, you do want to pay according to the terms that you signed up for with the bank. But because it's secured, again, the bank will offer better terms. So you can get maybe a 15 or 30-year mortgage, or second mortgage in this case, or home equity line of credit on your home. And this gives you a lower interest rate as well. So when the bank sees less risk typically they'll offer better terms, and that comes in the form of a lower interest rate. Interest rates right now for like a home equity line of credit might be in the 3s, 4s today in the U.S., talking third quarter 2020, and the amortization, the term being in the 20 to 30 year range also. Now compare that to the other loans I mentioned above, like a personal loan or consolidation loan, where those loans are typically unsecured, more risk to the bank. So they try to make up that risk by collecting a higher interest rate to collect as much profit or as much income from you in the case that you do default or otherwise not pay the loan as agreed upon in the terms. So with a personal loan or consolidation loan, remember I was talking 7, 8, 9% versus 2, 3, 4% with a home equity line of credit. Big difference in the payment. Now, how do you use the home equity line of credit? I'm going to talk about that in just a moment, but let me compare it to the sister loan. We'll call it the sister loan a home equity loan. So we've got home equity line of credit and home equity loan. What's the difference? So the home equity line of credit, you can think of it like a credit card. You use it, and then you start getting statements that tell you need to pay it a minimum payment or make the payment by a certain time. And you can either make the minimum payments or you can calculate the time to pay off the balance within the amount of time that you plan to. So if you make the minimum payments, you know that on a credit card, it may take a long time to pay it off. But if you say you want to pay it off in 3 months or 3 years or whatever the time frame may be, then you can do a calculation to get the credit card paid off in that time and usually save yourself a lot of interest. So a home equity line of credit is similar. You're given a line of credit amount by the bank and it just sits there. It doesn't get used. You don't get charged for it until you use it. Once you use it, and you can use it in the way that you would a checking account. Usually the home equity line of credit will come with the checkbook, and it'll also come with a debit card to attach to it as well. But once you use it, whether by writing a check or using the debit card portion of it, it's at that point, within about 30 days from when you use it, you'll start getting a statement or you'll start getting a notification that you have a balance to start paying. Many times the home equity line of credit will start with an interest-only period. So let's say the first year or the first 5 years, the payments you make are required to be at least interest only. It doesn't mean you have to pay only the interest, but you are required to make at least the interest only payments. And then after that initial interest only term is up, then you're responsible for the interest and the principal for the remainder of the term. So maybe it is a 25-year home equity line of credit, or it's amortized for 25 years. The first 5 years are interest only, and then the remaining 20 years are there to pay off the loan. Now, you could certainly start paying off the home equity line of credit immediately by making more than the interest only payment. There's calculations to show you how to do that. And in that case, you can set yourself up to pay off the home equity line of credit during the 25-year amortization, or much sooner if you wish to pay more. So the home equity line of credit is a revolving line. So you use it and then you start paying it. And when you pay it off, it should be there for you to use it again. Or if you don't use it all, then there's still a portion of it there for you to use. And you're only making payments on the amount that you have used. Much similar to a credit card, but much better rates, right? Since it's a secured loan, today, third quarter 2020, we're talking about rates in the 2, 3, 4, maybe 5% range. Compare that to a credit card where, as I said earlier, anywhere from 7 to 25%. So big difference there. Now there is one note on the home equity line of credit. The interest rate is variable typically. So that means that it could adjust based on the federal fund rate typically, plus the margin that the bank wants to make. So if the federal fund rate is 1% and the bank wants to make 3% margin or profit, then your interest on your mortgage or your home equity line of credit would be 4%. Now, if the federal fund rate rises to 2% and the bank wants to continue to make 3% margin or profit, then the interest rate on your home equity line of credit rises to 5%, and so on and so on. So it could increase. So that is a potential risk that you should think about or calculate as you use a home equity line of credit. There is that risk that the rate could increase, but it also could decrease as well. Today, the rates are probably as low as they ever will be, at least based on the past. They're as low as they have ever been and maybe will be, but there's a chance that the rates could increase. Now, for the sister loan, or I'll call it the sister loan, the home equity loan. We had home equity line of credit. Now we've got the home equity loan. There's two chief differences. In either case, the loan is secured to a home or to real estate. So it would be secured to your primary residence typically. It doesn't have to be your primary residence. If you have a vacation home or you already have an investment property, you could do a home equity loan or home equity line of credit against those real estate assets too. Banks like real estate, and for the same reasons that you should too. It's seen as a security blanket. Nothing's guaranteed, but it is seemingly less risk. It's a building typically. It's always going to be worth something unless something was to destroy that building, such as a natural disaster. And even in that case, you carry insurance on the property or on the real estate. So you're still protected. So the banks feel okay when they are securing a loan to a real estate asset. And that's the same reason you should feel pretty comfortable in investing in the real estate assets as well. So the home equity loan will be secured to your home or vacation home or real estate asset you may already own or invest in. It would be secured to that. It's typically, because of that, just like the home equity line of credit, it is a favorable interest rate. So we're talking in the maybe 2, 3, 4, maybe 5% range for a home equity loan. Now, for the chief differences, it is a fixed rate typically. So as the line of credit was a variable interest rate, the home equity loan will typically be a fixed rate throughout the entire term of the loan. The second chief difference is that the repayment starts immediately. You are advanced this amount. Just like you are the home equity line of credit, it's made available to you. But with the home equity loan, so once the loan is closed, it is distributed to you. The funds, let's say the home equity loan was $50,000 or $150,000 or $300,000, it is advanced and distributed to you. So you receive at the closing or at the time that you close the home equity loan, you receive that money and then the repayment starts immediately. So you receive the distribution of the loan today, and in about 30 days, you'll probably receive a statement or a notification saying a portion of that loan is due. You need to start repaying it. So how do you use these home equity line of credits and home equity loans for real estate? Well, that part is somewhat simple. I talked about at the top of the show, 20 to 25% is typically what you need at least to acquire the real estate asset. Now, there may be some other things you may wish to do with the real estate asset, such as place further investments in it for improving it to ideally increase the value. We talked about that in episode 5, appreciation or forced appreciation especially. But 20 to 25% will get the real estate asset under your ownership, under your management. It will allow you to invest in the real estate asset and acquire it. So you use the home equity line of credit or the home equity loan for that. In some cases, it may allow you to acquire the asset wholly, completely. Maybe instead of the 20 to 25%, the amount that you're given in the home equity line of credit or home equity loan allows you to acquire the entire thing. Now, the next important part is, how does the home equity line of credit or loan get paid? Ideally, the real estate asset pays that. I said that the real estate being an asset or the investment being an asset should pay you back. So when you're looking at a real estate asset to acquire, if you're actively being an investor and you're out looking to acquire the real estate asset yourself and participate in the real estate acquisition and the ownership and the longer term oversight of that real estate asset, then you'd be an active investor and you'd be out looking for these opportunities. When you're doing that, you need to make sure that when you're analyzing the real estate asset, and we've talked about that in recent shows, ensure there's enough cash flow or income left over after everything is paid to pay the real estate loan monthly and the home equity line of credit monthly, and ideally some left over beyond that to pay you. And if you're investing passively, I talked about passive income, you're investing and you're not going to have any oversight, or you're not going to be a part of the day-to-day operations or the acquisition of the real estate asset. And that's okay, because you have something else you wish to do with your time, or you're not interested in the oversight or day-to-day operations of the real estate asset, but you do want to receive income from it, and you do want to receive a good return on your investment. So in that case, you'll want to look at the opportunities that are presented to you and ensure that they provide enough income or cash flow to you, the investor, to pay that home equity loan or home equity line of credit. And again, ideally, even more, so that you can pay the loan off and receive income from it. So with the home equity line of credit or home equity loan, you receive those favorable terms from the bank because it's secured. And because of that, many times the real estate asset will pay the loan for you. So both active and passive investors, make sure you're analyzing, make sure you're working with someone you trust to make sure the numbers work in your favor and you're investing in an asset and not creating a liability for yourself. Remember, assets pay you, and liabilities, you have to pay it. We don't want more liabilities or otherwise bills. So what about a traditional loan, maybe a personal loan that's not tied to anything, not secured? As I mentioned earlier, these loans may not work when it comes to investing or investing in real estate because the terms just are not favorable for you. The rates are higher, the term is shorter. I said the rates may be 7, 8, 9% maybe for a personal loan that's not secured to anything. The term is higher. The term may be 3, 5, maybe 10 years, maybe. But all that equals a higher payment, more interest, paying off $150,000 or $200,000 in 3, 5, 7, 10 years. That's going to equal a very large payment each month. And the real estate asset just probably is not going to cover that. So when it comes to these other sources of income thus far, the home equity line of credit, the home equity loan, and just a personal loan, an unsecured loan, you'll want to stick to the home equity line of credit or the home equity loan. I like the home equity line of credit because though it has a risk with the interest rate rising or falling, the home equity line of credit gives you flexibility to go ahead and close the loan, have the funds available to you, so when the time comes to invest or to invest in real estate, it's available there for you to use. It's not costing you anything. It's just sitting there until the time comes for you to use it. The home equity loan, the rates are fixed typically, but unless you have an investment right in front of you or a real estate investment presented right in front of you to use, the home equity loan may not be ideal because once you close that loan, you're going to need to immediately start repaying it back. And if you don't have an investment to pay that loan for you, you're stuck with a liability, at least until that investment comes. So I've personally used a home equity line of credit successfully. I've acquired real estate. I've improved the real estate using forced appreciation. Again, episode number 5, I believe it was. And now that real estate asset has paid off the home equity line of credit, and there's just a mortgage left on the real estate asset itself, which the real estate also pays. The magic in this of the HELOC or home equity line of credit is that you get to reuse it over and over again. So the real estate pays it off in quick time because of forced appreciation, and you get to reutilize the same dollars for another real estate asset. So moving on, there's one more source of funds or dollars or money that you probably didn't know you could utilize to invest in real estate. It may be a bit of a surprise, something that many of us have sitting around. But to find out, you're going to have to tune into the next show. I thank you for listening to this one, and I hope it was helpful. If you have a comment or have a question, reach out to me. NeelyRealty.com/engage. That's NILEE realty.com/engage. This show actually came from the question of a listener, so I'll respond back to your comment or question directly, or we'll have a show about it. Now, I have one favor to ask you. If this show was helpful to you, share it with someone else, and I'll see them and you back here next time as we continue to unpack just how attainable real estate investing can be to you.
You have been listening to the It's Attainable Real Estate Investing Show, sharing transparent knowledge on investing and the powerful impact real estate investing can have on your wealth and lifestyle. Follow or subscribe to the show using your favorite podcast app so you'll know firsthand when a new show is released, or visit NeelyRealty.com/podcast and see the show there. That's NILEE Realty.com/podcast.